Hey guys, Brad Pryor here with Great Brandy today, and we are going to talk about the NRCHA. We have the marketing director, Miss Callie. Introduce yourself and what you do for the NRCHA.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm Callie-Boevers. I have been with NRCHA for just over 3 years now, and kind of worked primarily in the media and communications, and stepped into the director of marketing role earlier this year, and really excited to share everything Cowgirl with you guys.
Yes, ma'am. You're normally working behind the camera.
Yes.
So you've seen me fall over myself and go stutter and all this thing, so it's a little different being in front of a mic now.
Exactly. I think it's a very humbling thing. I'm sure a lot of our NRCHA professionals are laughing at this, that I'm on this side of the camera now and not behind it.
Yeah, we don't edit a lot of stuff, so we'll see how this goes. So let's talk about your background, where you grew up, your life story a little bit before you led up to where you're working in the industry. What does that look like?
So I grew up in California. My mom was heavily involved in horses, and I started showing horses when I was 5 years old. Was in 4-H, FFA, all of those great programs that get kids involved in agriculture at a young age. And then I went to Oklahoma State. I was part of the horse judging team there, where I got my animal science and ag communications degree before going out into the career world. I worked for a company in Oklahoma City right out of college, more based in the rodeo industry, doing marketing and social media for them. And then I went to work for NCHA and worked for the Cutting Horse Association for 5.5 years before coming over to NRCHA. So I've had the unique opportunity to work in lots of different industries in the Western sector, and I'm just so excited to be home with the Cowgirl now.
Awesome. So growing up 5 years old, getting into horses, do you feel like when you're listening or talking to people in the Western industry, do you think a lot of people start at that age, or do you think are you seeing more people start from a teenage perspective, or y'all being injected now in the high school rodeo stuff? And I feel like the NCHA is doing, all of y'all are doing the same thing, trying to get involved back in the high school rodeo stuff, or more involved, I should say. Are you seeing more of that, or are you even seeing 30, 40, 50-year-olds getting in the industry? What does that look like for age?
Well, I think it's changed a lot over the past few years. I think, 10 years ago, it was kind of something you were kind of born into, and you might have fallen in love with horses a little bit later in life, but most of the people that were competing were involved in this in a very young age. And I think in the past 5 years, we've seen that switch where people are excited about horses, are excited about the Western industry, and wanting to get in regardless of what age they're at. So, I get to see the unique side of NRCHA. We get to have a lot of youth kids, especially with our partnership with high school rodeo. You get to see a lot of transitions over from the rodeo performance side. And, and even with all of just the craze of being around Western and how being cowboy is cool again, we're seeing some of the older generations come in as well, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I've seen that with I think the trainers from what I saw 10 years ago to now, they're working with more of their customers than non-pros and stuff. I think that's getting an older age group in there. Like, get off the sideline and come hang out with us. And these trainers are investing in their business, and making their business stronger by getting their customers involved as well. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. And I think that's the really cool thing, especially with the Western industry. Everybody's very welcoming. Whether you're in the cow horse, you're in the cutting, you're in the reining, most times you can find people that are going to open their doors to you and open their wealth of knowledge to you just to give you a chance to be involved.
Have you ever seen anybody that their horses are actually their therapy?
Oh, 100%. I am one of those people for sure. I definitely think that's a huge thing. And I think especially for, I want to say for women more, but I think it's one of those things, this age gap of you graduated college, you're starting out your career, maybe you don't have kids yet. I think that they truly do become everybody's babies or therapy outlets or whatever that is. And so I think it's a really cool aspect to be able to have.
Yeah. And I think the more we talk about that too is, some people that have never been on horses are very intimidated on them. Mm-hmm. But, if everything goes well and they're brought up right and trained right, and you teach the person the mannerisms of the horse and how to respect them and respect you back, you get real comfortable and then you fall in love.
Yeah. 100%.
I feel like that's the way it typically runs, Or some daughter of a trainer brings a friend along, next thing you know, she sees all this interaction and all the cool things, and they get involved. I just love that about our industry, that we're open arm like that to the kiddos. So let's talk about the NRCHA, because we were talking about this when we were warming up a little bit. So people get confused with the NRCHA thinking it's a reining horse association. Yes. So can you start from like nobody knowing nothing to your events and all that stuff that go out throughout the country, and describe what the NRCHA is as far as what y'all do.
Yeah, so the best way that I've found to describe NRCHA to someone that maybe is not involved in the horse industry, has no idea, is think of it like a triathlon. So our horses are going to compete in 3 different events. One of those events is the reining, one of those events is the cutting, but then the ultimate event that is unique to NRCHA is the fence work or the cow work, which I think is the most adrenaline packed and what makes us such a great fan sport. Because it does keep you on the edge of your seat. You never know what's going to happen, and it all comes down to the fence work in our sport for sure.
Yeah, that's my favorite. But it is crazy what those horses can do at such a high rate of speed and turn that cow around. I love it. So, how does that work throughout the year? When is your, I guess, official season or stuff start? Is it coming up or?
Well, so it is 365 days a year. We have a unique system where it ends in November. So our last day of the point year is November 15th, and our first day of the point year is November 16th. Gotcha. So there is definitely no rest in our industry, but I think the really cool thing is it makes it so that if you're a fan or you want to come and get involved, you don't have to wait until October to learn about it. You've got events throughout the year and big events throughout the year to go and experience what cow horse is.
Got you. Outside of the 2 major events that I know about Fort Worth, are there other events that are going on? Can you talk about that? Because I don't think people know that. I think they know, okay, there's the 2 big events that happen in Fort Worth. What are the other ones that are going on?
Yeah, so NRCHA produces 5 events throughout the year. So that's, of course, our 2 big events in Fort Worth, the World's Greatest and World Show that we have coming up in February, and the Snaffle Futurity in October. But we also produce the Stallion Stakes, which is in Las Vegas in April. And then we have Scottsdale, Arizona. We've got our Western Derby, which is first part of June. And then we have the Hackamore Classic, which is in July in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So there's tons of opportunity across the country. And in addition to those, we also have affiliates. So we have local shows that are going on all across the world. I mean, we sanction events in Australia, we sanction events in Europe, in Canada. So there is definitely a place to learn about cow horse wherever you're at.
So there's international presence as well.
Yes.
I got you. Cool. And I think people need to know that because once they get hooked, they're going to want to follow it all.
100%.
So, and how do they follow you on your website or your socials? Or?
Of course, we're on all of the social media platforms, TikTok for however long we have that left, Instagram, Facebook. And then, of course, NRCHA.com. There's a really good community around that on the website that gives you access to upcoming news. It gives you access to interviews with our past champions. So there's definitely lots of resources. But the best place I will always tell you is to come to one of our events, get your butt in the seat, and experience it firsthand because there's nothing like it.
What is that event?
So Celebration of Champions is coming up. That's going to be February 15th through March 1st. World's Greatest Horseman, which is our premier event. If you think of the Olympics, the Super Bowl, any big event like that, that is what this event is. So the World's Greatest Horseman is actually a 4 event. So we take our 3 original events that we do across the board in cow horse, and then we add the steer stock-beat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always a crowd favorite. I always joke with our guys because they are true cowboys. They doctor cattle day in and day out. They rope every day. And every single one of them says they've never been more nervous than backing into the box at World's Greatest. So it's always a great experience. The energy is high. It's the best horses that our industry has to offer. These horses are finished bridle horses. They have been shown, they know their job, and they're incredible athletes. And so tickets are on sale. World's Greatest Finals are going to be Saturday, March 1st in Fort Worth, Texas, and we really hope everybody's there.
Oh yeah, it's always packed. It's
Yes.
always a great show.
Yes.
But I do get a good kick out of watching these trainers you become friends with over time when it comes to steer stopping part. You can start seeing the nerves come out real quick. And that, and then, and I know it's not something they do that stuff, but they don't practice the other disciplines that are involved.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, it's when that time comes, I feel like they practice a couple of days and then, where everything else they practice all year long. So
100%. And it's one of the few events that we have this year stopping. We have got what we call a super spec at the Western event in Scottsdale, Arizona, but it's definitely not the same scale as World's Greatest. And I think it's one of those titles that everybody, regardless of whether you're a cow horse fan, if you're in the Western industry, you understand what that title means and what type of horse and rider can achieve that title.
So how do they qualify to be at the world's greatest?
So there is no qualifications for the world's greatest. You can come enter. So that's the really cool thing about that event. And we see a lot of crossover that happens. You know, I've been watching some of the shows and you see some different faces from maybe the roping or the reining or the cutting that are coming over, and they're going to give it a shot. And I think we have strategically worked with a lot of partners to make sure that our go-round payouts through those preliminaries are going to pay out very, very well, to make sure that if you're a cutter and you're coming over to try this, you know you can get rewarded in this one event that you're really, really good at.
Right.
So it helps. But I think that's the really cool thing, because we've seen over the years, you know, we see Adon Banuelos and Jesse Lennox come over from the cutting. We've seen Casey Deary come over from the reining. We've seen, you know, lots of different ropers come over from that side. So it's been really fun to kind of make it a more welcoming event to the other industries, just because it's kind of the fun thing to throw your hat in the ring and see if you can make it.
Yeah, not all around cowboy kind of deal event, you know, tied up into the performance horse world. I think it's very cool. And just to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about. So that, four events, one horse, one rider.
One bridle. They can't switch bridles either.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's kind of the really unique thing, you know. A lot of these horses, you can train them to be really, really good if you can switch bridles between events. And our horses, of course, they've got to go through the herd work, the rein work, and the cow work in the same bridle. They're used to that. But a lot of the roping aspect, they're used to being able to switch bridles on them. And so that's a cool little added challenge to our event for sure.
I learned something new today. I didn't know that, but that could be scary and could be cool too, especially when you get the ropes out of it. Okay, so one rider, one horse, can't change bridles, 4 events. Can they enter multiple times?
Nope.
Different. So they can enter one time with
one time.
Okay.
Yep. So a lot of our other events, if you come, you know, you'll see some of our top riders on 3 to 4 to 5 horses when they go in. You get one bullet in the world's greatest, and you got to make sure that one's firing on all cylinders when you get to Fort Worth.
Yeah, that puts it all in some challenges. From looking at other events, they have multiple horses in the open, so you get another shot. So this is just a one-stop shot.
Yep.
You're done.
Yep.
That's cool. So let's back up and then let's talk about the event before that, which would be the world's greatest.
Or the Celebration of Champions.
Celebration, okay.
So that's going to be what we deem the NRCHA World Show. So competitors from all over the country, Canada, internationally have been competing all year to get qualified for that event and come and compete for an NRCHA World title. So that's a really cool event, especially because you get to see every level. You get to see our youth kids, you get to see our non-pros, and you get to still see those open bridle and open hackamore horses as well.
Okay. So you got non-pro, limited. What are all the...
So we have lots of different ways. Depending on how you want to compete, we've got a home for you. So we've got our youth boxing and our youth cow horse. So the boxing division is something that we offer for youth competitors and non-pro competitors. And it's for someone that maybe isn't ready to go make those big fence turns yet, but still really loves the sport. So the boxing takes out the fence turns. All you do is you have to keep the cow down on the short end of the arena for an allotted time and really just show that beginning control over a cow. And the cool thing that we've done with the boxing is you can stay in it forever if you want. You know, we've found that there's so many people that love our sport and love to stay involved, but they're not going to be ready to make up and go up to that fence turn level, and that's okay. We want you to stay involved, we want you to keep competing, and so that's why we have that boxing division. And then from there, we have kind of a step-up division called the Box Drive, which is offered just strictly for our non-pros, and that kind of combines like that second step, if you will, to get into that fence turn. And then of course, you go up to the non-pro division and you've got just the traditional non-pro hackamore, non-pro bridle, and it's usually based on the headgear that the horse shows. So that's another aspect about cow horse that is really different, is we have classes that are specific for the horse's age and the stage that they're at in their training.
Gotcha. So you go from there and then you're limited to your open? What's the difference between a limited and a non-pro?
So with that, you know, within each of those divisions, you've got your open, the non-pro, and the youth. There's going to be different levels within that. So our level 1, our limited, our intermediate are all kind of just different levels in there. So the level 1 is going to be people that are starting out, and we have that both on the open side and the non-pro side. So for you and I that want to get into the cow horse and we haven't done it before, our non-pro level 1 classes are going to be for us. But on the flip side, if we've got some trainers that are starting out and haven't won money in the cow horse before, it gives them an ability to go compete against their peers without having to go up against the big dogs in the open division, which can be intimidating and hard to get your feet wet and get that momentum behind you that you need as a young trainer.
Gotcha. Well, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of people, I think, when we look at all the day sheets and stuff, we're like trying to understand all the intermediate, all the stuff. So I think it helped clarify all that stuff.
Yeah.
So the next event will be in April.
Yep. So after we wrap up the World Show here in Fort Worth, we will be headed to Las Vegas for the Stallion Stakes. And it's going to be really incredible. This will be the first year that we're going to be paying out over $1 million just in the limited aged event. So that's going to be our 4 and 5 year olds. And we're going to pay over $100,000 to our open winner. And to put that in perspective to everybody, last year the winner went home with $50,000. So
wow.
It is going to be a substantial increase across all of the divisions, across all of the levels. And we're going to pay out more money and deeper holes and all of the things. So it's going to be really exciting this year.
And we were talking a little bit earlier about this. So you have kind of revamped the program, so to speak.
Yeah. So the cool thing about the Stallion Stakes is it really is kind of showcases the bloodlines and the breeders that have put so much heart and soul into these horses. And so with that, we've revamped this program. So currently what happens is a stallion will pay a nomination or subscription fee to allow their offspring the opportunity to come compete. And then on the other side, each horse will pay a nomination fee to come and compete. And so 1, it's increased the purse a ton. 2, it's definitely showcased our breeders. But the cool, unique thing that we're going to be doing this year is not only are the horses and riders that are going into that pen going to be earning checks, but those people that nominated the horse and nominated the stallion are also going to be receiving checks. So if I've got a horse that I sold to you and you guys go out to Vegas and you're going to go win, you took home the big check, I also am going to get a check because I nominated that horse and I saw the potential in that horse to go succeed in the cow horse. And so it's going to, I feel like, help incentivize people to stay committed to the cow horse breeding. And also, I think as a breeder, you get to sell all these babies and you don't, hopefully sometimes you get to stay connected, but usually the only recognition that you get as a breeder or as a nominator is a little name across the board when it runs into the arena. And this way we're going to be recognizing you as that breeder nominator and being able to send you guys a check at the end of the show as well, which I think will be really fun.
Yeah, I think that gets everybody interjected in it and following it a little harder too. So, and promote, it helps promote their future offspring coming up.
100%. And I think the unique thing with the cow horse is we have a very diverse bloodlines because we do all 3 events. So we pull from the cutting horse bloodlines, we pull from the reining horse bloodlines. And so it really also kind of brings those industries into us as well.
Right. Okay. So I don't know if we explained this earlier. But we have the reining side of it. We have the box, and then we have the cutting, basically.
Yep.
In all the events except for.
So the cow work or fence work. So that will be if you're in the boxing division. That'll be you're just keeping it on one end, or that's going to be when you're going to go do the big fence turns. So that's kind of our crown jewel. But yeah, it's those same 3 events across the platform, regardless of what you're showing.
Gotcha. So after Stallion Stakes, what's the next show?
So we head out to Scottsdale, Arizona in the beginning of June, and that is going to be our NRCHA Western Derby. That event is same thing. We've got a limited aged event, but we also have a lot of horse show classes. We have what we call the Holy Cow Super Spec, which is that additional class that adds that 4th event of the steer stopping. It's the only other time that you can see that event outside of World's Greatest. So it's a fun, everybody loves soaking up the sun in Arizona at that time. It doesn't get too hot usually. Right. We're usually right on that cusp. So it's a great event that we have out there. And one of the big things that we do with that event is the youth activities. Kimes Ranch, our title sponsor, is a huge proponent of the youth activities out there. And so we take pride in all of the stuff that we do for them. I know you came out last year and did a rope and dummy clinic, and that was so much fun. It was something new, and I feel like those kids would have entered all night long if we never cut it off.
I was very impressed how many kids showed up though.
Yeah.
And adults and parents and all that stuff.
Well, and I think that's that's one of the fun things, especially with those shows. You know, our Fort Worth shows are really long. There's a lot of pressure on the line. It's our biggest titles of the year. And so when we get to go out to Arizona or any of our other shows, I think it's really fun to see the involvement that you've got the top trainers down there and they're going to rope all night with the kids and they're going to do fun things. And I think that's the real cool thing about Cow Horse is how family oriented it is. Coming from different industries, and I've shown them all around. I've worked for the reiners, I've worked for the cutters. The Cow Horse has always stood out to me and just how much those guys are down to earth and they don't care that they're a $3 million rider in the pen. They love to go rope the dummy with the kids just as much. So.
And I feel like that's what, as y'all in an organization, y'all carry that throughout the trainers. I haven't really noticed anybody that stands out that's not willing to help the next guy, or the kid, or the novice, or the person just want to know or pet their horse, you know, whatever. You know.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, and you hear that the association's very family forward and all of this. And when I came over to work for them, I think I first really noticed it the night that Philip Rawls won World's Greatest on Call Me Mitch. Because that back little paddock where we were trying to get him down in for a victory lap and to do interviews and all this, there was a line of 20 people long just wanting to take a picture with that horse and take a picture with Philip. And you know, he was always very respectful to me as far as like, can I take one more picture? Can I take one more picture? But like, he knew that that was such an important aspect to that person, whether it was a 10-year-old kid or the family that came over from Brazil or, you know, just the people that live down the road. I think that was a really cool experience to see how much he could care less that he just won the world's greatest. He was more excited about showcasing his horse and meeting these people that were the fans.
Right. So we go from the Arizona show is Run for the Million, kind of where y'all's next little stop. I know it's not y'all's official show, but...
Yep, so we actually have one event before that. We have the Hackamore Classic. And this year it'll actually be, we'll do the American Performance Horseman, which is a unique event that Teton Ridge puts on that brings the top guys in from all of the different disciplines straight to the Hackamore Classic in Tulsa. So I think that's Saturday night and we start showing Monday. So it'll be a jam-packed little time, and then from that we go over to Run for a Million about 2 weeks later. So
that's a very energy-charged event.
100%, and I think it brought in so many people that were fans of the cowboy lifestyle but had no idea what reining was or cutting was or cow horse was. So it's a really cool place to showcase our event for sure.
I think it gives you that NFR feel,
yes.
The energy. Because like when you walk in that room or that stadium, arena, excuse me, you know, you just feel the vibes.
Yes.
You can't help but feel them. I don't care if you're a horse person or not. It just has that energy about it.
Yes, so. And I think that's the really cool thing, to be able to watch our guys that can compete at these events and showcase our sport at such a high level.
Yeah. So after that, Snafflebit?
Yes, back to Snafflebit. So that's our premier event that is kind of reserved for our up-and-coming horses. They're going to be all 3-year-olds that compete there in Fort Worth. And that is, you know, one of our long-lasting traditions. I think our first Snafflebit futurity was in 1970 and had 24 entries or something like that. They didn't have any divisions between open and non-pro and youth. That was it, 23 horses. And now this last year we had over 300 horses in the open alone.
Oh, wow.
So it's grown so much in a relatively short amount of time, and it's expanded our industry so much, I think, too.
Well, y'all call it Snafflebit. Is that the only thing they can show in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the unique thing, and which I think also is part of the confusion when it comes to cow horse, is there's so many different headgear setups that they can show in. Which is really unique to the tradition of the vaquero style of training, which is what cow horse is based off of. So those horses start out in the Snafflebit, that's going to be their 3-year-old year, and then they progress into what we call the Hackamore, and then into the 2-rein setup, and then into the finished bridle horse. And so I think that is one thing when you come in and you're looking at those draw sheets, you're like, what is the Hackamore, what is the 2? Like, none of this is making sense. And really, it's just paying homage to that history that NRCHA has and that tradition of training that started this whole thing. And so I think that's cool that we still keep that involved, but it's definitely something as a newcomer, you're like, I don't understand what I'm watching.
Yeah. I mean, I understand all the stuff they're talking about, but I don't know how it all interacted with each other. So you explaining all this, I feel like is going to open a lot of people's eyes to exactly what's going on and understand the draw sheets and all that stuff, because it's a lot. Try to understand, especially if you don't know nothing about the horse world.
It's 100%, but I also think it speaks to the longevity of our horses because they're kind of slowly progressed through that progression. When you get to the bridle horses and when you watch those world's greatest horses, those horses can be 10, 15 years old and they're still competing, which is not the same case when you look at the top level in other industries as well. So I think it definitely pays a lot of respect to the founding fathers of NRCHA, but also our horsemen and horsewomen that are continuing this tradition through their training.
Right. What do you think the ratio is between female and male in showmanship or showing?
So I think it's really interesting. On the open side, it's definitely more of a male-dominated sport, but on the non-pro side, it's definitely more female-dominated sport. So it's kind of an interesting transition because you would think as an outsider coming in and you think of it more of a corporate marketing side, you're like, well, it should be the same demographic across everything. If you're involved, it should be more women focused or it should be more men focused, and it shouldn't have that change. But that's what we see, and I think that's kind of the cool thing. It's also why everybody gets so riled up when we've got a woman that makes the finals or anything like that, because I think people just get rallied around the girl power of it because it is such a male-dominated sport on the open side.
Yeah. Me being a girl dad, it's exciting to watch that stuff. Watching my kids grow up and develop their roles in life, and then watching females in the industry do the same thing. Like, it excites me.
Yeah.
Because I do know what it was 20, 30 years ago. In any part of the horsemanship world, it was all males, basically. Very few females.
Yeah.
But now seeing so much interaction, I've interviewed some ladies that were showing in the last show at Sample Bit, and getting to hear their stories. It's very cool of all the things that they've done and still went through all the struggles and still was showing today at an older age and just pushed through it. I just think that's cool to show that, what the industry is doing.
100%. And I think the cool thing, the great equalizer in our sport is going to be that fence work and that cow. And so it really is anybody's game. You earn a spot in the finals and everybody has a really good chance of making it out on top because you never know what's going to happen, which also I think adds to the thrill of it for sure.
Yeah. Does your job involve a lot of travel?
Yeah, so I travel to all of the premier events. I also travel to all of our industry partner events. So that's going to be the American Performance Horseman, Run for a Million. I either can go to AQHA World Show and APHA World Show to just kind of watch the cow horse and be there to support and share the stories of it.
Awesome. So you're married, correct?
Yes, I am.
How does husband handle that?
Well, it's great because my husband is also an assistant trainer in the cow horse industry. So
that's cool.
It's a blessing and a curse. He sometimes is like, maybe you should not know so much about my job. But I think it's really great. And that's honestly when this opportunity came open to NRCHA, I had been going through, I recently lost my dad. I kind of had that, like, I want to find a place that really understands the family values. And at that point, I was working for the cutting, which I loved, but my husband was doing the cow horse. And we were like two ships passing in the night. I mean, he'd be getting home from cow horse show and I'd be leaving for a cutting. And it would just be, it was so hard. It was our first year of marriage, and I think we added it up and we saw like each other 96 days the whole first year we were married. Probably why we made it through our first year of marriage too, because I also heard that's the hardest. So, but with that said, it was great to be able to come over here because one, our schedules are kind of on the same deal, but we both love the same sport. So it definitely makes it, I'm in a unique situation where my husband loves the fact that I get to go.
I didn't know all that. That's awesome. Well, a lot of people don't understand when you are involved in the leadership part of these organizations how much travel is involved.
Yes.
And I, it's great. I think it's stuff people never hear about.
Yeah.
They just show up at a full show and think that's your only show. They know all the things we just talked about are going on, how much travel is involved with that.
100%. And I think that's, regardless for any event, whatever sport you do, the show staff, I think nobody understands what happens all behind closed doors. I know I'm guilty of it when I go to a horse show and I'm annoyed because the schedule's running too long or this or that. And I think that's the one thing that people should always keep in mind is how many things you guys don't see behind the door that we are doing to make sure that you guys have the best event possible.
I know an interesting question that people have asked me about the NRCHA and the NCHA is that how are judges selected?
Mm-hmm.
You give some good information.
Yeah. So with NRCHA, our judges go through a training application. So they can either attend our judges seminar that we host each year, or they can attend a judges seminar that affiliate hosts. So after that, they test, and then we do a ranking system. So they come in at a 1A, and then they can go all the way up to a 4A. And so our 4A judges are going to be more of the ones that you see at our premier events. They're very, very experienced. They've judged a lot of shows. And through that progression, between different tests and how many shows you've judged and evaluations you've gotten back to, you can progress all the way up. But the cool thing about NRCHA, which you don't have to have a certain amount of earnings to become a judge, which I think is one of those things where some people are like, you should have earnings, you should understand what we're going through as a showman. But on the other side, because I experienced the horse judging team, I saw so many kids come through that loved horses, but they didn't have the means to go show, or they didn't have the family support, but they loved horses and that was their way to be involved. And so I think there's a lot of value to be able to foster relationships and get people involved in the industry that love horses. They are wanting to learn every single thing about how to judge that run and how the runs can happen and everything. That we should never close them out of it just because they don't have the means or the access to go compete on a huge scale.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. What made you, when you moved from California to Oklahoma State, what made you go there over any other college?
Well, I really wanted to go into the ag communication side. When I was looking at colleges, I told my dad I wanted to get paid to go to horse shows. And my dad is not a horse person at all. And he was like, good luck with that. You're going to be either a horse trainer and you're way too high maintenance to live off a horse trainer salary. So, that's not an option. And so I kind of figured out from that I really wanted to do the ag communication side and stay involved in that aspect. And so I looked at a whole bunch of schools. And when I went to Oklahoma State, I really just fell in love with it. Like, it was the second I walked on the property, I just kind of felt like this was home. And as I spent my years there, it was very much that same kind of support system that you have when you grow up in a small community of, your 4-H leader and your FFA leader. And you have that same level of attention, even at a big Division I school. So that's what kept me there. And I loved it, every second of it.
Awesome. So if you had to tell yourself at 18 years old, or you had to tell another person that's 18 years old, growing up, or fixing to dive into the big world, what advice would you give yourself or them?
Oh, goodness. I would say just never underestimate the power of connecting with people, because the more people that I have met that, I just met in passing or I met at a horse show, the number of doors that they've opened for me down the road, I would have never suspected. And I think that's one of the big things that I see kids do today, where they kind of, not necessarily burn bridges, but they leave bad tastes in people's mouths just with simple interactions. And I think that's the biggest thing, is like, you never know who you're going to meet, and you're never going to know who they know, especially in the Western industry. It's so small that it's very easy to block yourself out of certain things, but it's also very easy to get your doors open for you with certain things just based on those interactions.
I agree with that. So I was a shy person growing up, believe it or not. But when I got in the horse industry, I was 12 years old, and I always had a struggle with being able to talk to people, because I was so intimidated about it. I wish I didn't know who people were, because people that I was working for would explain stuff to me. Oh, that's such and such. That's such and such. Well, it intimidated me. I was scared to talk to anybody. What advice would you give somebody that is in that situation to warm them up to be able to present themselves to somebody?
I think the biggest thing is they put their boots on just like you do. I have to remind myself that 13-year-old me would think I have the coolest job ever, because growing up, I got to see Corey Cushing win his first snaffle bit fraternity, and see all of these guys that are, superstars in our industry. And, a lot of people want to get, shy or get real timid around them, and they're the most normal guys ever. And I think that's the cool thing, is if you don't allow yourself that opportunity and you don't just give it a wing and just say, hey, I'm going to go say hi to them, you'll never know what they're really like. And I think that's the really cool thing about the Western industry is 9 times out of 10, those people will sit and talk to you about horses because we all love horses or we all love Western industry or the culture, and they'll sit and talk to you for hours because it's something they like too.
They really will. And that's why I hope people, when they're watching this, they understand that. Like, go talk to those guys, ladies, whatever, probably before they show, just in case they have a bad run.
I will say, the guys avoid the media after the runs.
That'll be the only time they might not be as humble they normally are, or they may be more humble. But anyways, I think that's a big thing for kids to be able to approach somebody, especially a kid that's not from the industry. And I'm talking about the kids traveling with a trainer daughter or something. And them being presented in the world and knowing how to talk to people is a big thing because we're all out here to help you. We really are. And I didn't know that, but I learned it as I went along, the hard way. But no, I think that's a big thing. And y'all do, I know after P, we do scholarships in the high school rodeo finals, right?
Yep.
How does that help, and what can you see if you, from other sponsors, what else could there to do in there besides just do scholarships? What do y'all need help with, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think the cool thing with our sponsors, especially like when you guys came on, you brought new ideas and you were saying, I want to get involved, but I don't want to just have my arena, my logo on the arena wall, which gets you great recognition, but at the same time, how can we add more value? And I think that's the really cool thing with our team is brainstorming new ideas and coming up with something that's a little bit out of the box. I think we've tried really hard to think forward in that aspect. And, we've launched something called the Careers in Cowtown, which really focuses on high school and college kids, and giving them an opportunity to do exactly what we've been talking about, network with people, talk to people, hear their stories, and understand that there's so many more ways to be involved in the Western industry than just, your standard, I gotta be a vet, I gotta be a horse trainer, I gotta breed horses, or, whatever that looks like to them. You can be involved however, and I think that's the really cool thing. And something that I take a lot of pride in with our staff is like coming up with those new ideas that either get fans involved or get youth kids involved, and working with those sponsors, because I think that's the really cool thing that, regardless of what people's idea is, we can't try it if we don't know about it kind of deal. And so I think that's the really interesting part of being able to work with different brands and partners is it constantly brings new ideas into the industry.
Gotcha. Well, we're going to wrap this up, but I'm going to ask you one quick question. And most people from associations have pleaded the fifth, but I'm going to ask anyways.
Okay.
What is your favorite horse?
Oh. Okay, so dead or alive?
Well, since you brought up both.
So I think my favorite horse, I have too many. This is
I know, everybody does, that's the problem.
Oh, okay, so horse that's passed, I think that my favorite horse is probably Shining Spark. When I was 9 years old, I fell in love with him. I probably owe Carol Rose like thousands of dollars worth of her stallion cards from when I was little. Because I constantly, just anytime a stat changed, I had all those things memorized. But he was the horse that really hooked me in the cow horse, because I grew up going to the Snafflebit fraternity, and anytime there was a Shining Spark baby in the finals, that was mine. That was my pick in my group, and I think that was really fun. But as far as a horse that's alive today, I think, it's so hard to pick. It's so hard.
Top two.
Scooter Cat would definitely be one of them. I think he's incredible to watch, and he's incredible to watch the partnership that him and Justin have built.
It is cool.
This is so hard. I think I'll have to go with Jules Lucky Charm and Kelby Phillips. I think I loved him when he was a futurity horse, and now he's become kind of more of a special horse to me, because now my husband actually works for Abby and Kelby, and so I've gotten to experience him not on the show side, and he is just such a fun personality that, he's kind of a smart ass, and he's kind of a, messes around with things, but I think it's really fun to see a horse that's so serious in the show pen, but can also be
jacking around, class clown.
Yes, exactly, and be able to have both sides of it.
Good deal. Well, Callie, remind everybody your next show and the dates. That way you make sure they come to see us.
Yeah, so please join us in Fort Worth at the Celebration of Champions and the World's Greatest Horsemen. That is taking place February 15th through March 1st. and tickets are for sale online at nrcha.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming hang out with us.
Thank you so much
Learned
for
a lot. I
having
got
me.
an education.
Yeah.
I love that.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Yes, ma'am.
Each and every Tuesday, catch a new episode of Grit Branded as we dive into stories from all walks of life in the hopes of you discovering what your grit is.